Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Muhi Khwaja with American Muslim Community Foundation on the Muslim Philanthropy podcast. Today on our show, we have Minhaj Hasan, who is the Director of Donor Care at Dar-us-Salaam Masjid in Maryland. And welcome to the show, Minhaj.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, it's a real pleasure to get to have an opportunity to chat with you and share with everyone what Dar-us-Salaam Masjid has been doing. And why don't you start with sharing a little bit more on your background, kind of where you grew up, how you got to Dar-us-Salaam Masjid, and everything in between.
Thank you. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. So I was born here in the United States on the East Coast, actually in New York. My parents immigrated from India, from Hyderabad, actually, and so I grew up here in Baltimore. I've been a Maryland person for forever. Only lived overseas for 2 years when my dad was working in the Middle East. Otherwise, I went through the school here, the public school system in Maryland. I graduated from an American public high school here in Maryland. Went to college in Maryland, here in Maryland. Still live in Maryland, so through and through a Maryland guy. I met when I was a freshman at the University of Maryland. I was introduced to an activist imam. His name was Safi Khan, and he was 36 at the time. I was, I think, 19, and he was gathering a bunch of youth around him to do community work. And I was attracted to that type of work. Community work means, like organizing lectures, organizing youth events, stuff like that. And we had our center at a masjid, MCC, in Silver Spring, Maryland, a Muslim Community Center in Silver Spring, Maryland, very well known masjid in Maryland. And everything grew from there. We were activists there, and I've stuck through the whole growth since I was 19, and now I'm, mashallah, 46. And I've just been doing community work ever since. I jumped into the nonprofit world in this masjid work, Dar-us-Salaam work, about maybe 20 years. It's been 20 years now, or maybe a little less, like 18 years. So I worked in software development for about 8 years. Back in Windows 32 development, for all those techies out there.
Nice.
Really early in the internet stuff, we did Perl, ASP 1.0, that type of stuff. Java first came out, we were doing that. So, but I didn't feel that I was the money was good, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled, and I wanted to have a greater impact on the world. So I jumped into the nonprofit world, into Dar-us-Salaam, and the first project that I landed on was a newspaper, the Muslim Link newspaper, which was started by, we have a school called Al-Huda School. It's our biggest educational project. Mashallah, almost 550 students from K to 12 or pre-K to 12. And interestingly, in 1998, the students, the high schoolers, girls, they started a newspaper as part of a community project called the Muslim Link. And they ran it for about a year before they all dispersed and they graduated and went away. And so that project kind of, because it was started in the community, it was incubated by the school, by the community, and it survived. But it survived, at least the name. And so I came, I had an interest in writing and an interest in journalism and media in general. So I was asked to volunteer and just kind of run it. And as you know from the community work, if you ever volunteer for something or accept something, it becomes your baby, and that's it. So what became a volunteer, what was a volunteer enterprise, became a full-time thing. And after about a year of volunteering, I jumped from software development to the newspaper. And alhamdulillah, I was with the newspaper for about 16 years.
Wow.
And we grew it from a high school project. By the time, within 2 or 3 years, it became like the de facto media voice for the whole DMV region, the DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia, and we were in the Supreme Court. We covered the first Guantanamo Bay hearings that were there. Hamdi versus Rumsfeld. So like CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, they're all in the press box in the Supreme Court, and there I was, right, with the Muslim League.
Very
So it was
interesting.
pretty wild. It was very wild. Alhamdulillah, So since then, I jumped over to being head of our donor care office. So now I'm doing that. Fundraising is my thing. Our little unit is tasked with raising about $1.4 million every year to help sustain the whole organization, and that's kind of the short history of my involvement. Alhamdulillah.
Nice. And when was Dar-us-Salaam Masjid founded?
So we started actually differently, very differently than most other masajid, where most other masajid kind of grew organically, from students or people who moved into an area. They needed a place to pray Jummah. They started renting places. The whole story with the Muslim institutions, the masajid. Then you need someplace bigger. Then you either buy something or build something, and then the community kind of grows around it. So we started differently. We started with an idea that, and it's kind of cool, it's kind of controversial, but we started with an idea that the best way to share Islam with the general population of this country, of our country, United States, is to model this deen rather than lecture. Books, pamphlets, and all that type of stuff. It only goes so far. But the culture in the West is seen as leaving. It's very scientific. If I see it and it's working, then I'll consider it. Right? If it's just in books, it's just theory. Everything looks great on paper. So we thought that we built an Islamic community with educational institutions, businesses, financial institutions, social services, everything that a normal community would have in it, but everything patterned on Islamic principles and values, right? Very much guided by the Quran and Sunnah. The whole spirit of Islam would be in there, whether it's neighborliness, friendliness, being environment, justice, everything, diversity, all that. It's radical. It's really hard. It's something that happens in years, but rather decades. So people, when they hear it, they say it's a pipe dream, right? Last time I presented on this with a group of Muslim leaders in Minnesota, I was at a little conference, and people thought it was a pipe dream. But we've done it, and alhamdulillah, we have maybe a half a dozen institutions and a lot of projects. We've had business projects, we've had a medical practice, and so we're really dreaming big. And so what I do is to try to get the money to sustain the growth of this vision.
Yeah, so share
And
a little
so
bit
yeah,
more.
it was 1995. I'm sorry. Yeah, you asked about founding. So we started the school in 1995, and so
Okay.
we didn't start a masjid. We started the school, and the whole idea was that fit into our vision of community building, because we
Right.
found that what attracts the activist families is school, an Islamic school. So if we can build school and make it a really good school, we're going to get families moving from across the region and across the country to come around that school, because they bring their kids there. So that becomes our community, right? So we were just a group of young people. We were like maybe 10 or 15 young people. Both of us were in college. Some of us were newly married. We're in their 20s, late 20s, and led by this guy, Safi Khan, 36 years old. And we didn't have our own community. So we had to bring in families to build a community. And we thought that the best way to do that is to build an Islamic school. And so that's why we started with the school. After 2 years, and no one thought that at that time in Maryland there were no community Islamic schools, at least where we were in in the big counties towards the south or towards the west. But so and the people around us where we were active, they were more they didn't believe in Islamic schooling. They thought that Islamic schooling was basically madrasa, sitting on the ground, just read on, and that's it, right?
Hmm.
They didn't put the big picture together, so they didn't think we would survive even the first year, alhamdulillah. But we started with 27 students, and subhanallah, you see the help of Allah come out from nowhere. So that first year, I guess a reporter got tipped off from the Washington Post. I don't know how this reporter found out about the start of our school, but I guess the reporter thought it was an interesting story. And we
Wow.
appeared on the front page of the main section, the page A1.
Yeah.
Back in the day before everyone took news on the internet, newspapers were still a thing, right? The physical paper. So
Right.
we were on the above the fold A1 main section of Washington Post, and a big picture, and it said I forgot the title was like guided by their faith or something like that, and there was a
Wow.
big picture of one of our classrooms. So subhanallah. So since then, um, Allah's given us success upon success. We have, just to put in perspective about how these kids are. Some people thought that these kids would not be able to speak English properly because they thought, okay, you're going to be in like a madrasa environment. But 2016 valedictorian, her name is Rahma Zakaria from our school. She started pre-K, graduated 12th grade with us, just graduated from MIT.
Wow.
Now she's doing her post grad work at the University of Maryland, pursuing her PhD, I think in bioengineering or something. And not only that, but as part of our community, where we have different institutions, we have a martial arts dojo, very professional, like built out. It's called Akal Karate. We do Tang Sudo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappling. So she's a black belt there. So through schooling, she got a
Very
black belt
interesting.
also.
Yeah.
And on top of that, right now, she is a very high achiever. But on top of that, we have a Hifz school, full-time Quran program. She popped out of the school for 2 years or a year and a half. She memorized the Quran in there and popped back out. So she
Wow.
graduated with a scholar admission to MIT, which she ended up going to, black belt in Tang Sudo, and a full Quran memorized.
How's that
So
for a pipe dream?
you see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of again, not everyone is like we have a lot of success from our students that has disproved the naysayers that it'll never work. It's working. We're still trying to improve, and that's just cool. So the community vision is still there.
Hmm.
We've outgrown our building. We have two offices. We are looking for property, like, really let down roofs. So that's where we are. Just keep on working and hoping for the best. But whether this community vision will be realized in our lifetime, we don't know. But it's a very very big vision, and we firmly believe that this is the best vehicle to share Islam, to showcase Islam, is to have it live in a community setting.
Hmm.
Alhamdulillah.
So the school's been functioning since '95, and then you mentioned there was a medical facility. So tell us a little bit more about like the medical practice, and is that still operating?
So um, part of building a community is to have these institutions serve people, serve humanity. And one of those ways, the situation in the United States with all this, how expensive it is and how accessible it is for a lot of people. So we got that, our ultimate vision, and again, we may not just have hospitals. Some of the hospitals in the country are, from the Adventist Church, from the Catholics, right? I mean, it's well known that they've been doing that. So Muslims should be like have doctors. And so, the immigrant Muslim is almost synonymous with like doctors, right? Whether it's Arab, whether it's Indo-Pak, but we don't have a hospital. MashaAllah, the Ummah Clinic is there. There's some other great projects that have come up.
Mm-hmm.
Those are clinics. Some of them are free, some of them are not. So we started a clinic with this in mind, that hopefully over the decades it could grow to maybe a hospital. It was called the Dar-us-Salaam Medical Practice. At its height, we started that in, I would say, 2004 or something like that. And at its height, maybe it had like 7 or 8 full-time doctors, including like a psychiatry area, counseling area. But most were like pediatricians or general practitioners. But what happened is that um, we started it to not only serve the community, but also to help financially sustain the whole vision. But that part wasn't going very well because you know it's a very difficult balance to serve community and then to make money also, like to actually like make a profit.
Mm-hmm.
So we were breaking even, and sometimes not, because we were giving a lot of free services,
Right.
and we weren't doing that aggressive uh, kind of get this test, get that test. A lot of clinics can make more money by suggesting other tests and stuff. So in the end, so we operated it for about maybe 10 years, but then it was taking too much load on our management, and um, and so we ended up selling it. We sold it to a sister who was working for it at the time. She was a very important member of our community. We sold to her, and she's running it. She cooperates with us, with a lot of low-income people,
Mm-hmm.
to get them help. But for now, we don't have it anymore.
And in regards to other programs and services that Dar-us-Salaam Masjid provides, what are some of the other active services that you currently have?
So Alhamdulillah, because of the scope of what we're trying to do, to build a full community, it's got to have your social services, it's got to have civic engagement, it's got to have everything that a community would have, including financial institutions. So every project or institution we start, we have this idea that if we could establish it, inshallah, and let it grow and take its own course to grow, then maybe that will be a major part of the community. So we have social services. We call it Ansar al-Bir, helpers towards good. Um, they've really grown during this pandemic. Before we were like looking after the elderly and Muslim and non-Muslim. So we have many elderly non-Muslims in the immediate neighborhood around our property, and we help them move. We shovel their snow. We give them groceries, especially during the beginning of the pandemic when there's a lot of fear about going to Costco and being in line and all that. So we go give them groceries. If we're in need, we give groceries as well. So that's social services, and then we recently started an independent nonprofit, which is non-sectarian, right? Because we're foundationally we're a religious nonprofit, 501(c)(3). So we do discriminate as far as like different things with hiring and stuff like that, on the basis of religion. But we have another organization that we started that's non-sectarian, and it's open to all, and the helpers to good. So we started that, and that's part of our social services. As far as we have the Aqaba karate, the martial arts for both men and women. By the way, we have about 30 black belts so far, and the majority of them are women sisters, right? So
Nice.
uh, pretty amazing. So then, and they compete. We compete in tournaments. Our kids, they win. Well, not all our kids, some of them are in their 20s now, but they compete and always get great. Sometimes we get medals for character, like because our team is very respectful. Very has a very good reputation in the grappling and karate circuit in the local area. Then we have the newspaper. That's our media outlet. We also have a preschool, like a full functioning preschool. The kids, although COVID, it's operating at 100%. With the school for K to 12. Then we have a special unit for the refugees. which is called the Muhajir Fund. And so the refugees, especially, we started this during the Syrian crisis. So they needed, Obama, Maryland was one of the places where the Syrian refugees ended up, um, Maryland and Baltimore area. So we were able to bring some of those families in to help them with
Mm-hmm.
the rent, with the language learning, kind of acclimating to the new culture. So those are the major institutions that we have. We have, like a sisters group for very sister specific stuff. It's called I Muslim, and we have a publishing arm for Islamic products. It's called Faith Publications. We have a bookstore, and a gift shop. That's part of our property. That's called Souq Al Huda, and that's pretty much, yeah. We have a university project also. It's in the very nascent stage. It's called Uba University. So we're trying to build out a full education program from K to university. But that's in a very, very initial stage. So
Very
that's where we
exciting.
are, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, no, it seems there's a
Now,
lot to keep you
we
busy.
yeah, we're also, we like to think that we're forward thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's risky. So in order to try to get financial sustainability, we've done stuff like start restaurant. We started a restaurant, like a full-fledged restaurant in a shopping mall. We got community investors.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Simply Halal, and so that was not a project that went very well. Um, we made mistakes, maybe we didn't have the expertise, or we didn't bring in the expertise to run it like we should have, but we learned. So we're trying things, and that's kind of like Cars for Jannah. We're trying a new thing with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Yeah,
always
sure.
trying to think big.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely you need forward thinking, risk taking to kind of see what some of those benefits can be. So tell us a little bit more about the Cars for Jannah program.
So Alhamdulillah, the Cars for Jannah program is what I was so good about it, because it's directly like, the hadith, ad-din nasiha, right? The religion is sincere advice.
Right.
And the whole idea of this project, Cars for Jannah, came from a community member. One of our donors, mashallah, kids go to our school, and he has a salvage yard. He has a business where he has got a salvage yard, and he gets junk cars, crashed up cars. He extracts the carburetors from them. Apparently, not the carburetor, catalytic converter. The catalytic converter. Apparently, that's a very lucrative part to resell. So he does that. So he's on one side of the chain of this charity cars selling, and then giving the junk cars as charity. So he kind of has an inside view as a buyer from these charities. So he's been telling us for like a year and a half that, hey, you guys should start this. There's other groups doing this. There's Cars for Kids, which is an Orthodox Jewish car
Mm-hmm.
donation outfit. And and we're like, inshallah, how it is. You gotta listen. It's like hard to do everything or look into everything seriously. It just takes some time. But alhamdulillah, finally, I thought, when I became donor care director, I was like, you know what? I know this brother has been mentioning this to us for at least a year. We have to at least respect his nasiha, and at least hear him out properly. So we went all the way to his place. It was in Virginia. It was quite a hike. Sat down with him, at his salvage yard, and we understood the thing. And then he was showing us the app that he was using to conduct business with all these other profits. And we saw firsthand, like, all the money that was being made everywhere. And so alhamdulillah, we started. We were excited. We started in early 2018,
Okay.
and it was we built everything out ourselves, hired, so that was where my background came in, because alhamdulillah, because I have the software background, I can interact with freelance developers quite easily, and I can tell them what to do, and all my own skills are no
Mm-hmm.
longer really there, but I can directly designed the concept, the applications. So we built out a car of development, a car donation platform based on some of the other ones, popular ones that are out there. They did all the research, so we said, okay, we'll just follow what they did, and we started getting car donations only for our community. So for 1 year, we only got it from the DMV region.
Right.
And it was kind of like a test. And alhamdulillah, it more than paid for itself in the first year. We hired one young Syrian refugee young man, he was 19, to process all the cars. You know, it was training, it was very simple, everything was online. We never had to see a car physically, we never had to go and tow a car or do anything like that. It was all just like click, click, some phone calls, some emails, and we were getting money. You know, it's $275 was like the average amount that we're getting per salvage car. And so once it was a proof of concept, and we're like, hey, if we're getting, you know, I think the first year we got like $15,000 that supported the school, and so we were like, if we're getting this much from just this region, and we didn't even really market it properly, like we were going kind of like Jumas, passing out flyers and stuff, you know, like the old
grassroots
way.
Yeah,
you know, make a Juma announcement, send some emails. We're like, if we did this properly and we were able to take it across the country, then maybe it would be a really big deal. And then we thought even more that, hey, why should this just be beneficial to our community? Because the car donation industry is $6 billion. Right?
wow.
$6 billion according to the IRS. That's what people write off, or they ask for deductions on $6 billion based on cars that they donate. So we're like, hey, you know, if the Muslim community is between 1% and 3% of the American population, they're also donating their cars, right, to whoever, like, you know, cars for kids, cars for puppies. So why shouldn't there be a Muslim version that helps recycle this money back into our project?
Love it.
So that's what gave the idea of the partner program. So we started. We hired a couple of young Muslims to call around the country to try to sell this idea. So it's not the easiest idea to get, because a lot of people think it has to do physical card donations, you know, like giving it to a refugee family or something. So we have to explain it properly. And other massages, you know, when we told them, look, you do nothing, you just put out a link that we build for you. You just put out a link and tell your community to donate their cards using this link, and just get a check. That's it. Right? I had members slapping me on my face like, I don't believe it. I think there's a catch, and we're not gonna, you know, you need to tell us the catch before we do this.
Sounded too good to be true.
Literally, they were like, no, brother, you're hiding something. So alhamdulillah, you know, right now we're doing we started doing 80-20 as a split, and now we've got to 70-30, which could change because that's still well above what the average
industry
standards,
average
car donation. Yeah, well above. You're doing, you know, some are doing 50-50, some are doing 60-40, you know, 60 for the charity and 40 for the car donation platform. But we're doing, alhamdulillah, 70-30. 70% of the money goes to the charity, and 30% comes to Cars for Jannah. And Cars for Jannah is non-profit, so it's going directly to our school. It's not going to anyone's salary or anything like that. And alhamdulillah, we think it's a win-win-win, like 3 wins, right? Win on the car donor side, win on the charity side, and win on our side, inshallah.
That's great, and really happy. You know, American Muslim Community Foundation signed up for Cars for Jannah. We had a donor that processed a donation. They said it was smooth on their end, and we received a check a few weeks later. So, you know, it was a really good experience coming from the nonprofit side, and I know from the donor side. So, it was one of the more exciting things that, you know, we were happy to promote, and glad that it was a positive experience.
I think we made you check. I have to go and see.
As far as I know, we only had the one car donation, but if there are others waiting, that's great to hear. But in terms of we also found out about Dar-us-Salaam Masjid and the programs that you guys were offering when American Muslim Community Foundation did the COVID-19 response fund for nonprofits, and your community applied. We got to learn about different programs that you were offering, and really happy that we were in a position to leverage community support to support mosques all across the country and other nonprofit organizations. So, tell us in terms of like what, we're now almost a year into this pandemic. Like, what were the challenges that Dar-us-Salaam Masjid had to face through COVID-19, and what are some of the learnings that you've had from it as well?
Well, I mean, the biggest challenge I think was the anxiety and the uncertainty that came with no longer having community events. Because as you know, Muhi, the masajid landscape is mostly like dependent on these live events. You have fundraising dinners, banquets, and Ramadan was a big thing. Where you bring people
Right.
physically to you talk to them, give hal, salam alaikum, all this stuff, and you get money, you ask for donations. So what was going to be the impact of the donations on without that personal interaction. So Ramadan came really quickly after the whole shutdown, right? And we were blown away. Honestly, that was that was our single best Ramadan ever as far as
Wow.
donation. And I checked with some other masajid and organizations. I'm part of some different WhatsApp groups and stuff, and people had similar, experiences. And in particular, the social services of the masajids were getting a lot of support. There was kind of a big surge of support. So we found that too. We got a lot of donors wanting to donate to social services, and we were turning around and helping our neighbors and stuff like that. But overall, we got big surge donations. Now, was that from kind of an emotional response, or like we don't want to see the message shut down, or whatever? I don't know. We have, we obviously need to go and survey some of our community members and to find out. But Ramadan was exceptional for us. And then there was a dip. A dip after Ramadan, which was normal. And now we're ending this. We're at the end of the year. So our end of the year campaign isn't going as strong as it did in the past, but it's also not. It's not weak either. It's kind of stable.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, the financial challenges uh, haven't really been there as we were afraid of. And then also, I have to mention the PPP, what is this, CARES Act, right?
Right.
That they
Payment
did in March.
payroll protection
Yeah,
plan. Yeah.
yeah, but that money, we got some of that money, and we're processing our loan forgiveness, which will find the loan will be forgiven, and that'll really help our bottom line as far as because money that we would have had to spend on payroll, we're able to put it to other things. So alhamdulillah.
That's great to
But
hear. And yeah, I think for organizations that had a plan in place and how to engage the community for Ramadan, given the new circumstances, they ended up faring well. And I've noticed as well that year-end giving has slowed down a bit as well for AMCF and for other charities that I've been talking to. So inshallah khair, hopefully you'll still be able to meet, if not exceed, your goal with the rest of the week, and following up with donors and looking at the analytics of who are people who haven't been able to give this year but gave in previous years, and being a little bit more strategic with your follow-up. So,
yeah.
I really enjoyed hearing more about Dar-us-Salaam Masjid and the programs that you've offered, and also a little bit more about yourself. Just one of the last questions that we always love asking people is, what are some of your personal favorite nonprofits that you support with your zakat or sadaqah? Of course, we'll assume that Dar-us-Salaam is on there along with the other projects there. But if you wanted to highlight two or three other organizations and the work that they do and places that you personally give to, that would be great.
Alhamdulillah, I give to a lot of organizations. Personally, like I have, Nihad, I've had this kind of mentality since I was first started making any money, when I was in early 20s or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
is that, this whole idea is that if everyone gives something, then we're all going to be that much stronger, right? Um, so, so every time I get an envelope, or emails, a little bit difficult because too many emails come.
Sure.
But uh, but every time I get an envelope, paper envelope with a donation appeal, whether it's from Baymal or Islamic Relief or CARE or MLFA or whoever it's from, I try to put something in there. I try, even if it's $5. I usually go for like odd amounts, $11,
Sure.
$21, whatever it is, and and so some of my favorite. So alhamdulillah, I do donate to like a lot of organizations, random schools in New York, and like a lot of stuff. But some of my favorite, it comes from my background in India, like my 17 years or so covering, especially I was covering a lot of constitutional rights issues, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
in courts, I spent a lot of times in these, post 9/11 kind of entrapment cases and in the courtrooms, covering right alongside all the other big papers. So I personally feel that for us today, the battle is no longer a PR issue. I think the days of like the press release same stuff being having treating Muslims properly, I think that's over. That was a '90s thing, I think now the battle for the Muslim community is in the courtroom, and so I feel that
Interesting.
zoning issues,
Right.
trying to keep Muslims out through zoning laws and stuff. I think like MLFA, CLCMA, I really respect the work that they're doing. I personally, they're one of my bigger like recurring donations that I give. It's a modest amount. It's one of the big ones that I give. One thing about Dar-us-Salaam is that we have alhamdulillah, it's something I feel really good about. And this comes you help your brother or your sister, Allah help.
Yeah.
Which is different than a lot. We have an open door policy to come and fundraise, whether it's in Ramadan, peak time, last 10 nights, whether it's Lima,
That's great.
even it's before our own annual dinner. We've allowed organizations and we take 0%. We
That's
don't
great.
charge anything. We take 0%. And in fact, when they come, if they don't have own staff, like if it's only one person who's coming and they don't have people to boxes, they don't have a table, we ask them. We have our donor care office staff and volunteers help them.
That's so
We
helpful.
put their
Yeah.
banners, we put their banners on our tables. Sometimes we take, or often we've taken our donation boxes, printed their logo, and pasted our donation boxes. And sometimes we had a smaller organization like come up from Florida or whatever, and then come away with a lot. We'll put some money from our, like $500 or whatever, or $1,000. We'll give it to them from our general fund just to, and subhanAllah, it has literally happened to us before where we have given money, like, we need it to an organization that came to solicit funds for their masjid, and boom, suddenly out of nowhere, that week or whatever, one of our donors gives us a big check. It's literally happened. So
That's
alhamdulillah,
beautiful.
we feel really good about this. I personally feel about this because I love helping other organizations when they come, whether there's relief, whether it's an education, whether it's, care. So alhamdulillah. But as far as some of my favorites, MLFA, ACL, CMA, the relief organizations, they all have a soft spot in my heart for whatever they do. Islamic relief, I ended up, Bel Hassan, you know him, he's the head of the Virginia office. And
Hmm.
so I was able to spend time to interview him as part of my journalistic duties at Muslim Link, and hearing what they would do, go to these areas like in Africa and these places and sleep in the office. Like the staff would
Wow.
sleep in the office, not at a hotel. Save the money that we go to the recipients. And like do something like I slept on the conference table, another person slept on like a chair, and it was very moving. So I really respect at least some of the work that they're doing as well. Alhamdulillah. I only recently learned about you all, Muslim Community Foundation, mashallah, and what I you know you giving the grants to other organizations is
Hmm.
very noble. It's wonderful. I
Alhamdulillah.
think it's unique. I haven't found too many organizations that are all doing this, at least on the scale that you guys are doing it,
Right.
and with the professionalism that you're doing it.
Thank you.
So, so I think you're pushing the envelope to like to 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 improve the work organization is kind of like setting, being a pioneer in this area to give grants and stuff like that. Alhamdulillah.
Oh, that means a lot, and definitely something I think we'll definitely have to visit Dar-us-Salaam Masjid, and we'll have to have the link write a article about AMCF as well. And I know you
Inshallah.
shared that we received that you guys received the grant in the newsletter, so we appreciate you spreading the word about AMCF that way as well. And
Alhamdulillah.
just a real honor being able to chat with you. One last thing that I wanted to ask you personally is you made the transition from the corporate world into the nonprofit world, and you were talking about just finding that sense of fulfillment. But what were some of the other like motivating factors that made you? I'm sure there are other people in similar situations that want to do the same thing. Talk a little bit about that transition for you.
Well, I mean, that was really, when you go into your office, like, honestly, I'll just be very upfront. I was never a computer guy, right? It was actually computer phobic. When I was a freshman in college, I got married in my sophomore year, and with marriage comes the need for money right away. So I had I everyone was saying computers, computers, computers. So I changed my major. I took some crash courses in Novell Network. If you remember that, way back in the '90s before
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft became a giant in the network. So I took classes in that. I spent a lot of my money on those training, but it was a freshman and freshman courses in computer science that gave me the skills that I needed to get my first job in programming. But as I was going there struggling and I was making good money, but I was leaving every day, I was not fulfilled. And I saw the incredible need around the world for Islam and for bright minds to be activists, right? So not that I'm trying to make myself look like I'm a smart person, but the people with the skill sets, the intellect, the drive, the activism, the activist mentality, they need to be involved full time. So now all these masajid that we've, mashallah, are all over the country that are being run by these board members who go to work in the day and then in the evenings they're working on the masjid work or the weekends. And imagine if that energy could be put full time. Like I feel that it's so important and it's such a duty for us that it deserves our time. For those of you, those of us
Mm.
who can do it,
Mm-hmm.
we need it. We can't do volunteering and like it only goes so far, right? So I felt that if I do it, I maybe maybe or whatever some people think. Um, what are some of the things yeah, Islamic organizations are not there yet with retirement packages. with
Right.
full benefit.
Yeah.
People in my age, my like my brother, he's mashallah worked for a big company, and he has a very good 401k plan, and that
Right.
has accrued over 25 years. And what do I have? I have zero. I don't have a 401k plan, and that's after working for an Islamic organization for almost 20 years. Okay, so in my mind, I say I'm gonna try to do whatever I can, but in the end, ya Allah, it's you. You promised that you're going to take care of those who try and strive in your way. So it's on Allah. I'm going to try, like I said, be healthy, work, save, whatever. But in the end, this is part of the sacrifice that we make.
Inshallah. I mean,
Um,
but hopefully we can get our institutions to a place where we can provide those basic things for their employees and also push the envelope that way. So inshallah,
yeah,
that's also something that we can do to retain talent and keep talent in the nonprofit community and inspire more people
exactly.
like yourself to make the jump. And there's hundreds of nonprofits that have full-time staff in the Muslim community, and we need to do what we can to elevate their healthcare packages, retirement packages, and
Exactly.
everything like that. So I think there's a real opportunity in the next few years that we'll see a big shift. And of course, larger institutional organizations like CARE and Islamic Relief and some of these larger chapter organizations have those services, but there are many masajid and organizations across the country in the Muslim community that do not. So I think there's a really big opportunity there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And we've started like an endowment, and that we're hoping can end up
Great.
being some kind of retirement plan, but it's very in initial stages. But yeah, that is a major area that inshallah we're moving towards, or the whole nonprofit sector for the Muslims is moving towards. And alhamdulillah, I'm looking forward to it. I always feel proud when I see other organizations with like cutting edge professionalism. You know,
For sure.
we try to meet meet to their standards, inshallah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being a pioneer in the field and for joining me on today's podcast, and look forward to continuing to work with you as well.
Inshallah, thank you, Mahi, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and everyone at the American Muslim Community Foundation. Inshallah, you're doing great work. Keep it up.
I mean, thank you so much.